Have you ever felt guilty for not being able to love your mother the way you should? Or caught yourself silently wondering why the arms that were supposed to be the safest always felt distant, cold, or even unsafe? This is a pain that almost no one dares to name. A pain wrapped in silence, shame, and a social taboo that suffocates. The guilt of not feeling loved by the one who brought us into the world. From an early age, we're taught that every mother loves unconditionally. That maternal love is instinctive, sacred, and perfect. But what if it's not? What if your childhood wasn't filled with affection, but with absence, constant criticism, or a kind of love that only came after you obeyed or erased yourself? Is that still love? Or just a social script that many pretend to follow, but few truly experience? In this video, we're going to break the silence. We'll talk about the mother wound, an emotional scar that shapes our relationships, our choices, and even the way we see ourselves in the mirror. You'll discover that this pain didn't start with you, and healing begins when you finally dare to look within. Get ready for a deep journey through the psychology of Carl Jung, through the wounded child still living inside you, and through your own emotional liberation. Because your story may have started in pain, but it doesn't have to end that way. Do you remember the first time you felt you had to change who you were in order to be loved? Maybe it was when you swallowed your tears so you wouldn't be too much. Or when you realized that to receive affection, you had to please, give in, or stay silent. That's the root of the mother wound. An invisible scar, but deeply real. It forms in childhood. In a look that never came. In a touch that was missing. In an "I love you" that only came with conditions. And the cruelest part? It often leaves no visible marks, which makes it harder to recognize. There are two faces of this wound. The active wound, born from abandonment, abuse, neglect, or explicit violence. The subtle wound that many carry unknowingly. Control disguised as care, constant criticism masked as concern, love that demands performance, and even reversed roles, when the child is the one who has to care for the mother. How many times did you have to erase yourself to keep the peace? How many times did you feel that no matter what you did, it was never enough? The impact of these experiences doesn't fade with time. It transforms into insecurity, anxiety, trust issues, fear of abandonment, toxic relationships, or an emptiness that nothing seems to fill. And what if I told you this wound silently shapes the way you love, the way you see yourself, and even how you treat yourself? But here's something that must be said with courage. The wound is not your fault, but healing is your responsibility. And that's what we're going to keep exploring. In the next few minutes, you'll understand how deep psychology, especially Carl Jung's teachings, can help you name this pain. And more than that, stop being ruled by it. Because unhealed pain repeats, but pain that is named can be transformed. And what if the way you love today isn't truly yours? What if your fear of rejection doesn't belong to the adult you are, but to the child still living inside you? According to Carl Jung, the mother is the first image of the world. It's through her that the baby's psyche learns what safety, love, and comfort are. Or the opposite, rejection, unpredictability, absence. The relationship with the mother doesn't stay in the past. It becomes the psychic foundation on which everything else is built. So what happens when that foundation is cracked? You grow up afraid to step into the world. Always waiting for love to be taken away. Walking on eggshells in relationships, trying not to make mistakes, not to bother, not to be abandoned again. This is the root of attachment patterns, widely studied in psychology. And here, Jung helps us understand that the mother wound isn't just a trauma. It's an inner emotional structure that repeats until it's seen. Cyclone. Secure attachment, when the mother is emotionally present, predictable, nurturing. But when that's missing, distortions emerge. Anxious attachment, the mother is unpredictable. Sometimes loving, sometimes absent. The result? You live in constant alert. Avoidant attachment, the mother is cold, distant. You learn not to need anyone. You pretend not to feel. Disorganized attachment. The mother is both love and fear. Affection comes with pain. Confusion becomes the norm. Do you recognize yourself in any of these patterns? Could it be that your way of relating today was born in the arms where affection was missing? Jung said that naming the pain is the beginning of healing, and that what remains unconscious directs our lives as fate. That's why you keep repeating the same cycles. You sabotage yourself. You love those who don't love you. You abandon yourself so you won't be abandoned. But what if there was a way to change the root? What if you could transform the image of the mother that lives inside you, without needing to change your real mother? In the next section, we'll talk about the psychic mother, the one who lives in your mind, and how she can be your prison, or your liberation. And what if I told you that your mother still influences you, even if you don't speak to her anymore? Even if she's no longer alive? That's because the real mother gives way to the psychic mother. Jung called this the archetype of the great mother, an inner force we all carry. But this force has two faces. One is light, nurturing, comforting, protective. The other is shadow, guilt, control, fear, abandonment. Which of these faces do you recognize most within yourself? When you feel guilty for resting, when you feel like you have to earn everything, whose voice is that? Often, it's no longer the voice of your biological mother. It's the mother who was imprinted inside you. A mental echo that says, "You didn't do enough. You're being selfish. You're only worthy if you're useful." This inner mother can become an emotional prison, an invisible judge watching you at all times, even when no one else is around. She lives in your mind, and sometimes you call her your conscience. But what if that conscience is just an old program running in the background? How many decisions do you make today trying to please a mother who only exists in your mind? The good news is, you don't have to change your real mother to be free. True transformation begins when you reclaim power over your inner maternal image. When you consciously choose to nourish the luminous side of the great mother, the one who embraces, supports, and says, "You are enough," simply by existing. So here's a question to open the next door. If there's a mother inside you, who created her? And who has the power to rewrite her? In the next segment, we'll dive into the deeper structure of this emotional prison. The persona, the shadow, and the mother complex that governs your life without you realizing it. And what if I told you your mother still influences you, even if you no longer speak to her? Even if she's already gone? This happens because the real mother gives way to the psychic mother. Jung called this the archetype of the great mother, an inner force we all carry. But this force has two faces. One is light, nurturing, comforting, protective. The other is shadow, guilt, control, fear, abandonment. Which of these faces do you recognize most within yourself? When you feel guilty for resting, when you feel like you must earn everything, whose voice is that? Often, it's no longer your biological mother. It's the mother engraved within you. A mental echo that says, "You didn't do enough. You're being selfish. You're only worthy if you're useful." This internal mother can become an emotional prison, an invisible judge who watches you even when no one else is around. She lives in your head, and sometimes you call her your conscience. But what if that conscience is just an outdated program running in the background? How many decisions are you making today trying to please a mother who no longer exists, except in your psyche? The good news is, you don't need to change your real mother to free yourself. True healing begins when you reclaim your power over that internal maternal image. When you consciously choose to feed the light of the great mother, the one who says, "You are enough just as you are." Now ask yourself, if there's a mother within you, who created her? And who can rewrite her? In the next section, we'll dive into the deepest layer of this emotional prison. The persona, the shadow, and the mother complex that quietly runs your life. Who would you be if you weren't trying to please? And what if your way of being in the world isn't who you truly are, but who you had to become to be accepted by your mother. In Jungian psychology, there's a name for this emotional armor: persona, the mask you learned to wear in order to survive. The good girl, the son who never cries, the strong adult who never asks for help. But what if that persona is silently killing your essence? Beneath it lives your shadow, everything you had to hide, suppress, or erase to keep being loved. Your anger, your need for comfort, your sadness, your longing to be truly seen. And the more you suppress it, the more your shadow finds disguised ways to surface. Self-sabotage, anxiety, chaotic relationships, physical symptoms. Have you ever noticed that you are the one holding yourself back from being happy? Have you ever wondered where the urge to punish yourself comes from, especially when things finally start going well? The answer may lie in one of the deepest layers of the unconscious, the mother complex. It functions like invisible software, filled with unresolved emotions tied to your mother. And it activates without your permission. A word, a look, a moment of rejection, and suddenly, you react like you're 5 years old again. Have you ever felt like part of you is acting out, and you don't even understand why? Like you explode, cry, or shut down, as if someone else took over? That part is the complex in action. It's not madness. It's unconscious repetition. It's pain, desperately trying to be heard. But here's the most liberating truth. What is unconscious controls you, until you decide to bring it to light. In the next segment, we'll explore the most delicate part of this wound: how it affects love. How your childhood might still be choosing your partners, your emotional patterns, and even deciding who you attract and who you repel. Because as long as the wounded child is the one loving, they will love to be saved, not to be whole. Have you ever loved someone who made you feel small? Have you found yourself holding on to relationships where you gave everything and received crumbs in return? Or perhaps you've noticed a pattern, always attracting the same kind of partner: unavailable, cold, controlling? This isn't a coincidence. It's not bad luck. And it's certainly not your fault. According to Carl Jung, we all carry within us a contrasexual archetype. Men carry the anima, the inner image of the feminine. Women carry the animus, the inner image of the masculine. These images are shaped in childhood. And do you know by whom? By our mother, our father, and by the emotional experiences we had with them. When those relationships are wounded, the internal image becomes distorted too. In men, a wounded anima often leads them to fall in love with emotionally unavailable women. Women who mirror the emptiness or absence they experienced with their mother. Love becomes an impossible mission. A quest to save the mother in another woman's body. In women, a wounded animus shows up as a harsh inner critic. A voice that constantly says, "You're not enough." Or it draws them into relationships with authoritarian, cold, or controlling men. Men who reinforce the wound instead of healing it. Have you ever wondered why you feel attracted to those who reject you, and bored by those who embrace you? What if it's not love speaking, but the wound choosing? Yes, often, what we call love is just an unconscious attempt to fix an old pain. The wounded child inside you is still waiting to be chosen. And so, it repeats the same script, with new faces. But how do you break that cycle? How do you learn to love without hurting yourself? The answer lies in looking inward. Recognizing that part of what you call chemistry is actually familiarity with pain. Because when you heal your inner image, you also change what you call love. In the next segment, we'll explore one of the deepest and most difficult roots of this wound. The case of the narcissistic mother, when love comes disguised as guilt, control, and emotional blackmail, and how it can leave marks that last a lifetime. Have you ever felt like you owed your mother something, even though you didn't know what? Have you ever been afraid to be yourself around her, as if any move could become an accusation? Have you heard phrases like, "After everything I've done for you, you're so ungrateful. I gave you life, And this is how you repay me? Welcome to the delicate and often silent territory of the narcissistic mother. She doesn't scream with words, she screams with guilt. She doesn't strike with hands, she wounds with expectations. She says she loves you, but charges interest you can never emotionally repay. And if you don't fulfill the role she assigned to you, she gets hurt. But is that pain real? Or just a tool for control? The narcissistic mother doesn't see her child as a separate being, but as an extension of her own ego. She wants to be admired, obeyed, validated. And she feels threatened when you begin to grow, disagree, or differentiate yourself. Her love is conditional. If you please her, you get affection. If you confront her, you get silence, emotional blackmail, or rejection. And what does this teach the child? That to be loved, they must erase themselves. That feeling anger is dangerous. That having personal desires is being selfish. Thus, a fragile identity is born. A version of you that lives for others. That doesn't know how to say no without guilt. That seeks approval and fears rejection like it's death. Are you living your life, or the life others expect of you? How many times have you silenced your truth just to avoid disappointing someone who was never satisfied? This dynamic is one of the deepest and hardest to break. Because guilt is the chain that binds. And the fear of being bad keeps you paralyzed. But here's a truth that must be said with courage. Saying no to a narcissistic mother might be your first yes to your own soul. And no, that's not a lack of love. It's an act of love for yourself. In the next section, we'll talk about something that often haunts those who've lived through this pain. The fear of repeating the cycle with their own children. And how it is possible to break the pattern. Even if you grew up with no example of what healthy love looks like. Have you ever looked at your child and feared becoming the very thing that hurt you the most? Have you ever caught yourself repeating words, gestures, or silences that you swore you never would? This is one of the greatest fears for those who carry the mother wound. Repeating the cycle. And the cruelest part, it doesn't repeat consciously. It hides in the details, in the impatient tone of voice, in the rigidity that stems from fear, in the love that wants to protect, but ends up suffocating, in trying to give your children everything you never had. Have you forgotten to give yourself what you still need? The truth is, the wounded child doesn't just vanish with time. She adapts, learns to please, hides the pain behind a smile, keeps going, survives. But in that adaptation, something essential is lost. Your essence, your spontaneity, your lightness, your ability to just be, without fear. And that silent loss echoes in the way you relate to the world, to your children, with your partners, with yourself. Are you living your truth, or the reflection of a wound that never had space to exist? The good news is, awareness is the first break in the cycle. When you notice it, feel it, acknowledge it, you're already taking a step your parents may have never been able to take. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get everything right. But you can be the link that transforms the inherited script into living healing. Because trauma is passed on in silence. But healing begins when someone finally dares to speak. And in the next section, we'll name this process of liberation. We'll talk about real, accessible, and powerful tools to start this healing journey. Journaling, meditations, psychotherapy, active imagination, and most importantly, the reconnection with your inner child.